Pride in Manitoba has come a long way since the first Pride protest in 1987. Although Pride has become a regular event in Winnipeg, many rural communities are celebrating for the first time. In 2019, Pembina Valley Pride held its first event in Morden. For 2S LGBTQ+ individuals living in rural areas, rural Pride events are a chance to see you're not the only one who feels the way you do. Let's learn more about Pembina Valley Pride coming June 10th with President Peter Wohlgemut. Let's get into it.
My name is Peter Wohlgemut. I use they, their, them pronouns. Have been a middle years school teacher for 31 years. I'm actually retiring at the end of this year.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you very much. I've been involved with Pembina Valley Pride actually since it started. I was also at the first 2019 event. I was one of the speakers at that event. Following that, I was on the board for a while. Then I ended up as chair. And then most recently, I've been serving as president of the organization.
How about you talk to me a little bit about your feelings that you had during that first Pride event? I know for myself, for someone who was closeted for very many years, seeing a change out in the Pembina Valley was kind of a big moment that allowed me to also take those first steps of acceptance and coming out.
Oh yeah, it was a pivotal moment, I think, for quite a few people in the area. I know for myself, I come out not that long before, I've only been out a few years before that happened. We're kind of at the point of thinking, well, are there any other rainbow folk in this area? Particularly in this area, you have to be a little careful about who you're out to. I've been told that I'm not very good at hiding it anyway. But it was very much my spouse, Denise, and I were already talking about, are we going to need to move to Winnipeg so that I can find some community? Is that where we're going to need to go? And then I was asked to speak at this Pride event, which was actually put together fairly quickly by a couple of young people in the Morden area. I think one of the biggest takeaways from that event was the realization among members of the rainbow community, but also the larger community, there are a lot of rainbow folk in this area. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, was encouraging. It was shocking. The number of allies that were there and the scale or the breadth of that allyship, from young kids to seniors, church members, like it was all over. There was just so much support, and so many people on, like I said, fairly short notice came out to that event. It was life-changing, I think, for a lot of people. We realized we can have community right here. For a very long time, members of the rainbow community have felt to be themselves, they need to leave. They've been told that either directly or it's been just very obvious. And I think one of the big changes that came about was simply the realization that, if you need to go to school, something like that, yes, but you also have a place right here.
You want to have a home in the community.
Exactly. And that was huge. For me personally, we had the pandemic then, which meant we couldn't do in-person events for a few years. Last year, though, we held our kind of subsequent in-person event here in Altona, where I live. That was another big one because there had never been an event like that in Altona. And we had tons of support from a number of churches in the area, from members of town council, from senior admin. Like, there was a lot of support. And for me personally, to have the mayor of the town refer to this as being my hometown was huge. I didn't grow up around here. I grew up in Southern Ontario, and I've lived here for quite a while, but particularly after realizing that I was myself queer, really didn't feel like I belonged. And then to have the mayor of the town say, yes, you do. And I told him just how impactful that was for me personally. And to have that kind of event here in town, again, was a really big deal. And this year we went back to Morden, and we're having our in-person event there again this year.
It's exciting. Despite the challenges growing up as a queer individual in more conservative communities, it is exciting to see the amount of support and acceptance that there is. And although, there are those that kind of push against progress is being made, but it is something to continue to fight for, and that's what Pride is, right? It is a protest to continue to be like, hey, people within the diverse community of 2S LGBTQ plus are here, and we want to be a part of communities, we want to be a part of families, and just celebrate together. For yourself, and we're having Pride very, very soon. What do Pride events mean to you?
A good chunk of the year, I mean, this is changing, but for particularly in this area, a lot of queer folk spend most of the year in very cisgender heterosexual settings. That's their context. I mean, we do have things like we run games nights, we have a Rainbow Family event, we have some support groups that happen, but people go to that in the evening, then the next day and day after day, they're in contexts that where they may be either openly or, as far as they know, the only queer person in that space. And so a Pride event is an opportunity for people to see each other. I mean, and see in a very deep, very meaningful way. It's not just to visually, oh, there's that person. It's like, oh, you're either one of us, you're either part of our community directly, or you support our community, you celebrate our community. For a lot of people, I think that goes a long way to carry them through the year. It provides them with that, yeah, there are people in my community that are like me or that see me, that recognize, that celebrate who I am. And that's huge. I mean, I think of like Brandon School Division had their board meeting to respond to that.
I saw that.
I mean, I know I checked in, I think it was probably around 11:30 p.m. and the presentations were still going on. Like
wow.
it went late into the night. And if you look at the articles, I mean, they did get, I think it was almost 300 contacts, like letters, emails. The vast majority were against the idea of removing books. And so to see that kind of support, and we're seeing it more often, like this was at a board meeting, we're seeing these kinds of supports coming out more and more. And that's huge. But Pride remains, as you said, it's a protest, but it's also kind of a family gathering. It's
kind of all-encompassing, right?
Yeah, it brings together all these different elements, which makes it challenging for planners because people are coming for different meanings, and different reasons. Some want more protests, some want more family gatherings, some want more celebration. But it's all of those kind of all wrapped up and rolled into one event, which is huge for our community.
As the years go by, hopefully these events continue to pop up in other communities where it's never happened before, and continue to expand as more people come in to join in on these celebrations and events. And yeah, it's really exciting to hear about the people that were standing up against those book bannings that were proposed. And then even in Winkler, like there was the South Central Regional Library, there was like a petition of names of individuals who were claiming ridiculous things about certain books within the library. So it's important to continue to educate individuals, and like you're mentioning with Pride, just seeing people out there and understanding, yes, we're people just like anyone else. It doesn't change anything.
Well, as you mentioned, the library, I mean, that goes way beyond Winkler. I mean, South Central Library is it 6 different communities across southern Manitoba. Each of those branches has been targeted by people trying to get books pulled from the library. Here in Altona, I've talked to librarians and others. People have, gone in there screaming at them. Librarians in our area have been accused of horrible things when they're just out and about in the community, like not even at work. So yeah, there is certainly that pushback, that desire for us to be hidden. It's almost kind of got the point, well, fine if you have to be that way, but we don't want to see it or know it.
Yeah, we don't want to see it.
Yeah, it's like, no, as you said earlier, we are part of this community. Whether you like it or not, we are here. We're not going anywhere. More and more people are going, yeah, no, these are important members of our community. Our communities in southern Manitoba are becoming more and more diverse in many different ways. I mean, racially, religiously, and in terms of sexuality and gender. For a lot of us, that's great. It's a wonderful thing.
It's my role at U Multicultural. I've had the opportunity to meet so many different people of cultural, ethnic, and religious backgrounds, and just getting to learn their stories and learn about their culture, I find is not only great to share that content with Winnipeg, but has allowed me to develop as a person. Growing up in Winkler, in a lot of elements, it was very sheltered.
Yeah.
And having the opportunity to just see the plethora in this mosaic that makes up Canada is just something incredible.
So I'm actually on a medical leave right now at school, but prior to that, we have been asked to survey our students and find out, okay, how many different languages are spoken? I mean, and I teach grade 5 here in Altona.
Yeah.
And if I recall correctly, just my classroom, which was, I have 22 kids. I think we got up to 12, 14 different languages in my classroom alone. I was talking to one of my students, they dropped by to say hi, and they speak 4 languages, are learning a 5th. This sort of thing is going on. One of my favorites, you talked about the multicultural aspect of it. A number of years ago, I had a student come up and asked, they said, well, I need a skin color crayon. I kind of looked at them and was like, what do you mean? Well, a skin color. I said, look around our classroom. I kind of turned around and went, oh, my skin color. Oh, okay, I can help you with. But it was just that moment of aha, there is a real diversity in this area that 10, 20 years ago wasn't the case. Or at least some of those there, you just didn't see it.
Deliberate efforts like all of the cultural festivals, like Winterfest in Morden, and then, I forget the name of the one that takes place in Winkler. The cultural festivals are great opportunities for that. And Pride is just another aspect of all those celebrations, of seeing a different community and celebrating it. Mm-hmm. As we're talking about, the challenges that we're seeing of people approaching librarians and saying things to them, it's really unfortunate that we're starting to see the rhetoric from the United States permeating here in Canada. It's really unfortunate because the things that are happening in Tennessee or Florida are just absolutely horrible. Awareness is so important in challenging some of those very dangerous misconceptions. So what are some things that Pembina Valley Pride is doing? I know you mentioned game nights and things to help bring the community together, but is there outreach to continue to help educate the broader community?
Yes, we've done a few different things. We've partnered with our local school division here in this area. We had Dr. Reese Malone back in March. He was in the area doing some PE for teachers. And so we organized an evening info session for parents and community members as well. We had Dr. Shane Reitmeyer out of Portage do a session online talking about trans healthcare in Manitoba. Even knowing some of the stuff, the state of trans healthcare. When you hear these people going on about trans people and trying to convince everyone that, kids are doing this willy-nilly. And then to hear that it can take up to 6 years for someone to get a surgery that they a gender affirming, life-saving surgery, take up to 6 years in Manitoba. And then you've got these people trying to convince everyone, this is just, people are doing it on a whim. No, people who desperately need this have to fight and hang on for up to 6 years to get the support and to get the surgeries they need. Our healthcare system in terms of supporting trans folks and others isn't anywhere near where it needs to be. And then
it is not.
People spouting lies about what's going on is really concerning and disconcerting.
Out in the United States, I watch a lot of content from the United States, and they're talking about they're going to Trump rallies and things, and they're asking people, what percentage of the population do you believe is trans and is transitioning? And the numbers are upwards of a quarter of the population. And it's this massive blown out, yes, there's a lot of trans individuals, and as society continues to be more accepting and welcoming, more are going to be willing or able to transition and be their authentic selves. But it is still just a fraction. I think it's maybe 1.2% is the estimate of the actual number of individuals who identify as trans. So there's this massive blowout of everyone is turning trans sort of thing, and that's just not the reality at all. What is it, the graph in terms of left-handedness, and then when they stop demonizing it, it's there's just a natural progression, and we're starting to see that plateau in Gen Z of about 20 or like 20 to 25%, about a quarter, are within the 2S LGBTQ plus community. So like, yeah, it's a lot, but like, it's not this massive thing that it seems, conservative pundits are pushing.
Right. I was actually, you're talking about seeing stuff out of the States. I was watching a speaker and I don't remember which state legislature it was. But on the flip side, people often try and poo-poo the idea that there are intersex individuals. And this person pointed out, who actually himself happened to be red-haired, pointed out that the incidence of intersex individuals is similar to the incidence of natural red-haired people. And you could just see some of the wheels turning, like, okay, on the flip side, they're not trying to say that there are lots of intersex people, but you do see some of these pundits trying to say it's not real. Yeah. Yes, it is. That, gender, sexuality, these things are not as binary and as isolated as you're trying to make it out they are.
Yeah, that's the one thing I've had to learn growing up, is that for me, it's just something that's always been there, but I never had the education or knowledge to understand, like, what are these things? And when you're in an area and, you feel that, oh, because I also like boys, like, that makes me a bad person, like, that really eats at you. So in terms of these books and things within libraries, it's important to have those materials so that individuals can learn about themselves early on, so they have the language to articulate, what they're feeling.
The language to articulate it and to see, like, oh, it's not just me. This is real, and gives them language. I know some people eschew labels, but at the same time, in our society, in our culture, in a lot of ways, labels get people to realize that this is real, that this is something. I mean, a good friend of mine came out, I think he would have been in his mid-40s. And, he talked about looking back through his life and going, oh, that's why I felt that way. That's why I reacted that. So many things through his earlier years came into focus. And I found the same thing when I came out as genderqueer. It was like, oh, that I look back at pictures of myself as a teen and go, oh, that wasn't just being the 80s. There's more than that.
Oh, definitely. There's all those moments of anyone who's like eventually come to the realization they are somewhere on the spectrum. Like, duh, those things make a lot of sense. Trying to break out of the mold of what society has deemed this is acceptable for, like, a male, for example. And it's just about building those support systems, building those things in place where people just feel welcome to be themselves.
Yeah, instead of, like, I think back too and go, there were a number of bands that I loved as a teen. Now I read across, oh, they were a well-known gay band. I had no idea. No idea. But, I'm going, okay, that makes a certain amount of sense.
The pieces are all coming together.
Well, but it really speaks to this idea, if you don't have the language, you don't have the exposure. I listened to their songs, I saw their videos, because videos were a huge thing that, that's kind of started when I was in my teens. And I look at it now through what I know now and go, well, how did I not see this? But at the time, I had no language, I had no context, I had no way of recognizing what this was about. I mean, it's kind of funny now in some ways, but at the same time, kind of sad.
When we're talking about, like, trans healthcare or gender affirming care and continuing to support the rainbow community, an announcement that was made just recently was the Gender Equity Manitoba Secretariat. And I know in the press release you had a comment in there. I guess just what are your feelings about it?
In talking with people at Pride Winnipeg over the last few years, since I've been in my role with Pembina Valley Pride, there is a desire to connect. Like, you talked about a lot of smaller communities starting to have Pride organizations. I mean, Portage Pride, Brandon Pride, Steinbach Pride. I think there's Gimli Pride. I think there's one at Thompson, Flin Flon. Like, it's all over the place. But we're all small. We're all volunteer organizations. It's really hard to connect. And so part of what I'm excited about with this funding is it will enable Pride Winnipeg to take some leadership at bringing all our various small organizations together so that we can coordinate, we can share resources. Some of that, I've been able to make some connections over the last few years so that I can connect and get resources and can help connect others. But to have that dedicated, support is going to be huge for all these smaller ones who are looking, how do I do this? So, someone's looking for this kind of support. How do we do that? It will be a big deal. And I'm really excited to see where this is going to go.
The first sort of funding of its kind in Manitoba, and it's good to see progress is being made. I know you had on the social media asking for like sponsorships and other things. How can people support Pembina Valley Pride?
We have a website, pembinavalleypride.ca, and there are resources on there. So, if someone comes out in your family and you're not sure what to do, if you are coming out yourself and looking, those resources are there. But there are things also, opportunities to donate financially. We're not a registered charity, so we can't issue tax receipts, that sort of thing. But donations.
No, you're helping a good cause, right?
Well, that's exactly it. It enables us to do things like put on the Pride event, like have our games nights and support groups and family events. All those things take money, and fortunately, the community businesses and individuals in the area have been very supportive financially and have enabled us to do some of these things. And we can look at going, okay, yeah, we can rent a facility for this. We can cover the cost of some of these kinds of things. So, if people go to our website, there are instructions there about how they can donate to the organization. If they're not in Pembina Valley, find a local Pride organization, because guaranteed they can use the funds to support the rainbow community right in that community, wherever in Canada it is.
Thank you so much, Peter, for taking this time to talk with me about Pride awareness and celebrating, to stand out, to be yourself, to enjoy the amazing things out there. So you're mentioning website. What is that website? Where can people go to find out more about you? And when does Pride officially take place in the Pembina Valley?
The website is Pembina Valley Pride, all like no spaces, .ca. Now we'll get you right to our website. Our Pride event is going to be on Saturday, June the 10th at the park right in Morden. We're planning to start at about 1:00. There'll be a bit of an introduction. We're going to be marching kind of through the city there, come back to the park for a drag show, and then and have a number of speeches by various members of our community. Once that wraps up, there's actually also the Pembina Hills Arts Council is hosting a drag dinner that evening.
Amazing.
So the tickets are available through Pembina Hills Arts Council, phac.ca or .org. I think it's .org. But so there's lots of stuff going on in the community that day, and it's exciting.
Have any stories you'd like us to share, or communities we should highlight? Leave a comment on our social media or reach out to us on our website. I'm Ryan Funk. This was You Talk, and have yourself a good one.